どどどどどどどどどどどどどどど。
姉様、ちょっと来て。
もうリース、どこに行ってたの？お買い物を済ませたら店の中にいないんだもの。姉さん驚いちゃったわ。
向こうの屋台で美味しそうな匂いがしたから。それよりも変なのを見つけたの。
変なの？まあ、
行き倒れ？それとも食い倒れ？
多分食い倒れじゃないと思うけど。でもよくそんな言葉を知ってるわね。それよりもねえ君、私たちの声聞こえる？よかった、ちゃんと起きているみたいね。どうしたの？こんなところに座り込んで。
お腹空いてるのかも。あんまりすくと喋る元気も出ないし。
なるほど、リースが言うと説得力あるわね。それじゃあとっておきを出そうかしら。
クイーンシーベルのチョコレート。
さっきリースのおやつに買っておいたんだけど、いいかな？
我慢する。
いい子ね。ねえ、よかったら食べて。甘くてとっても美味しいよ。
Now that's a maxed up box.
クイーンシーのは最高。値段と味のコストパフォーマンスが一番だと思う。
そうよ。甘いものは体も温まるし、遠慮しなくていいから。
うるさいわ。
え？あ、
さっきからうるさい言うとんのや。とっとと消えろ。頼むから。俺に構わんといてくれ。
姉様。
なるほどね。そんな風に連れなくされたら私だって考えがあるわよ。うんうん。
It's actually exactly what he said.
こんなものかしら。
何すんねんいきなり。
よかった。やっぱり甘いものは元気が出るでしょ。
元気出たんやない。ぶったまげただけや。いきなりこんな地上かあんた。
あら、リースといい、最近の子供は難しい言葉を知ってるのね。日曜学校で教わる言葉じゃないと思うんだけど。
姉様、そういう問題？
そうや。そういう問題とちゃうわ。ってあんたらの格好。
自己紹介がまだだったわね。 私の名前はルフィナアルジェントよ。この子は妹のリース。あなたの名前も教えてもらえないかな？
ケビン、聞いているの？
あ、すまん。ちょっとぼーっとしてたわ。
大丈夫？
無理もない。ここに来てからあまりにもいろいろな出来事があったからな。
少し休んだ方がいいんじゃないですか？
心配いらへんって。とりあえずここらで一旦情報の整理をしとこうって話やったな。
うん、そうだけど。
あの黒騎士という男、思っていた以上に多くの情報を我々にもたらしてくれた。まずは我々がいるこの異空間の名前だが、
ファンタズマ。あの黒いお兄さん、そんな風に言ってましたね。
ああ、なかなか思わせぶりな名前や。ただ七葉教会の伝承から取ったわけではなさそうやな。
うん、聞いたことのない言葉かも。それから王という存在。
ああ、察するにそいつが今回の一件を仕掛けた黒幕ってことなんやろ。随分俺たちのことを嗅ぎ回っているみたいやけど。
そういえばあの男、気になることを言っていたな。リース殿の姉がどうとか。すまない、立ち入るつもりはなかったんだが。
いや、
確かに私には姉が一人いました。ルフィナ・アルジェント。私たちと同じく聖杯騎士だった人間です。
リス。
過去形ということはすでに。
ええ、騎士団の任務中に殉職しました。5年ほど前のことです。
そうだったのか。しかしどうしてあの男がそのルフィナ殿のことを。
わかりません。姉がどんな仕事をしていたのか。またケビンはどう？
すまん、俺にも見当がつかへん。ただルフィナ姉さんはとんでもなく優秀な騎士やった。腕前もそうやけど、その判断力交渉力を買われて、あの男もそういった事件で姉さんと知り合ったのかもしれん。
そう。
いずれにせよ現時点でははっきりしないということか。すまない、結果的に立ち入ったことを聞いてしまったようだ。
いや、気にせんとってください。いずれにせよ敵が俺たちの出方を伺っているのは確かみたいや。この先はこれまで以上に注意する必要があるでしょうな。
ああ、そうだな。よし、それではそろそろ探索を再開しようか。
あの黒いお兄さんが現れた場所のさらに先に行くんですよね。
ああ、階段の向こうに新しい転移陣があったみたいや。準備が済んだら宝石を使ってもう一度あの場所に行くとしよ
ダンダンダラダラダンダンダンダダダン。Bam, bam, 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 ba-dam, bam, bam, bam. All right. We have to go read Cornelia. Yay! Just what I wanted to do. Sit here and fucking read. All of Cornelia is on the bookshelf. Oh, okay, it's only 10, I guess. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's 10 pages. The Imperial Chronicle. I stood there, upright in front of the revolving door, scuffing the heels of my boots against the ground. Pulling slightly on the collar of my trench coat, I dropped my chin and gazed at my partial reflection in the curved glass. Aside from my short-cropped hair, I wore a modest-looking double-breasted leather raincoat and a pair of special-order steel-reinforced boots, both of which at first glance appeared to be the most common of common apparel. Yet they were in fact much more than the naked eye could detect. My ordinary average appearance. It was of just as much importance today as it had been on any other day in times past. Not far off, the sound of footfalls echoed rhythmically, like the steady beat of a pendulum swinging back and forth as the throngs of those coming and going moved quickly along the cobblestone avenue, enveloped and tinged silver by the morning mist. At times, the calling voice of the street peddler disrupted the steady flow, but as soon as the hawking cry faded away, it would resume its course. Man, it's like someone just wanted to add as many fucking big words as possible. Each morning that I found myself setting foot in the Imperial City, I also found my surroundings to be unchanged and stained by the same somber tone of gray. Snatching up a magazine from the underarm of a street vendor, I tossed a few mirror in the left hand poised expectantly behind his back. The Imperial Chronicle, the magazine I read so often that even the ink bleeds, were familiar. Roughly flipping open its cover, I scanned the headlines along the top of its monochrome pages, and suddenly my breath caught in my throat. At the very bottom of the local news page, I found those letters, that sequence of characters which I had not heard nor seen since the time of that life-changing incident. My eyes instantly gravitated to the spot, for a time remained fixated. Einselnate. The very meaning of those letters became lost to my senses as I stood motionless, my gaze fixed on the same line of text, until it all seemed to coalesce into a single blotch of ink. After a few seconds of blank comprehension, my vision settled and I wrenched my eyes to the beginning of the article. As I began to read, my memories verged on a single point in my past and then slowly started to run in reverse, heading for that fateful event 3 years prior when this name was first introduced to me. It was on an afternoon all those years ago, on a day not unlike this one, where the capital was overshadowed by its typical gloomy aura. I was a little younger than now, a 22-year-old boy who stood silently in front of the boutique door as usual, double-checking his appearance before lightly treading over to Mick's Imperial factory. It was on this day that it had been arranged for me to receive a new job from Mick, the shop owner himself. Although he was a drab middle-aged man, I, being the Orbman enthusiast I was, had found myself as one of his few regular customers. I headed down a dank alleyway, and after passing through a partially rotted wooden gate, I could see the soft glow of the flickering orbital light just outside the entrance of the factory, whose structure was halfway below street level. I first began receiving jobs from Mick about the time when dissension began to occur in society over the 100 Days War. It was during this period that relations between the Liberal Kingdom and the Empire were at their worst, and the importation of ornaments had become almost non-existent. Conspiring with underground elements in planning a smuggling operation, Mick made me out to be his accomplice in crime. For the job which I received by his hand was none other than that of the courier. Being nothing more than a commoner in my teens at the time I met him, in a juvie devoid of any connections in life besides, I naturally jumped at the opportunity without a moment's hesitation. Yet even after relations with Liberal had returned to some degree of normalcy, I realized I was in no mood to give up my specialty, which focused mainly on the delivery of stolen goods. The reason being, there was no job out there which could bring in the kind of mirror this one did. With an unrefined and inconspicuous appearance, I had countless times before hidden items of various sorts in my hat and trousers and made my way hither and thither between the borders of these neighboring nations. And though to my delight, my wallet had become increasingly laden with a bounty of monetary rewards, I'd routinely changed my alias as a precautionary measure. So much, in fact, that these false names had built up into quite a list over the last few years. I had been known as Phil the Frivolous, Rooney the Trickster, and even Chris the Coward. However, Mick had always called me by one name, Toby. This was the identity I had used for my initial job and the one I liked above all others. Jesus. Dude, Cornelia's long. The train station. Hello there, Toby. You've come just at the right time. You've come at just the right time. Greeting me with these words, Mick shuffled slightly in his seat behind the counter. The baked confection he had been eating was ever so carefully placed atop his lap to prevent it from falling onto the floor. He smacked both of his powdered sugar covered hands together with a clap, and a cloud of white particles puffed into the air. The smell of sweet spices and baked apple pervaded the dimly lit shop. We had an item dropped off no more than a few minutes ago, he continued. Turning in his seat, Mick reached back and snatched up something wrapped in old magazine paper from off the shelf, tossing it to me. Knowing full well I wouldn't get any sort of answer, I asked anyway. What do we have this time? Laying out my railway and airship tickets, Mick ignored my question and said, make sure this gets to the same place as always. In his slow drawl, he added, it would be in your best interest to keep your involvement to a minimum by leaving the business side of things to me and focus solely on getting the job done, Toby. He leaned back in his chair and let out a deep sigh, the balls of his fingers kneading the bag under his eyes. Then once again his large hand extended down toward the unattended cake resting on his leg. Before the sweet treat could reach his watering mouth, I had already made my way out the door of his tiny shop. As I walked, the waste paper bundled package bounced around inside the folds of my bag. By the feel of its shape and the weight as it beat steadily against my side, I concluded that the object in my possession was probably just more swag. What? It didn't make me nervous not to know what it was that I was carrying, for I had done this type of job many times before, and no matter what trouble I found myself wrapped up in, I had always somehow managed to come out unscathed. In truth, my experience in the job had made me tough, and I became well versed in the art of orbital magic. So it was then when I laid eyes on that rough-looking trio at the station, I felt no more knots of uneasiness in the pit of my stomach than was necessary for someone of my ability. The platform for the train bound for Liberal was a bustle with passengers awaiting its eventual arrival. Seeing that the benches were so crammed full of people that they could have very well been a tin of packed sardines, I resigned myself to standing near the entrance. As I patiently waited for the train to come in. Twisting my body in order to move the bag to my other shoulder, I noticed the fingers of two men. Heads bent together and conversing in an inaudible tone, they stood just beyond the ticket gate, right about where the horse head of the Imperial emblem lay embedded in the ground in a grand mosaic of tiles. After a short interim, another man approached and joined in the conversation. From my perspective, this was one ragtag group I most certainly couldn't have given a passing grade to based on looks. All three were extremely well built and sported the same haircut. To put it mildly, they stuck out in the crowd like a bunch of sore thumbs. Making sure to avoid eye contact with them as they glanced in my direction, I slung my bag back onto my shoulder and ever so calmly reached my hand into my pocket and ran the tips of my fingers across the surface of my ornament. A woman's voice reverberated within the walls of the station, notifying the passengers that the train had arrived. The low rumble of an orbital engine could be felt in the distance, and after a few moments a large vehicle was seen rolling up on the shoulder. I muttered to myself, all is well, but the sound of my voice was drowned out by the din of the massive machine. Brakes screeched and a flash of black light reflected off the surface of the giant iron beast as it came sliding in across the rails. The immense vibration in the air emanated from the moving locomotive at its epicenter, letting me know that the orbital engine had been put into full reverse in order to decelerate and bring the train to a grinding halt. While being shoved to and fro by the waves of impatient travelers flooding out of the waiting area, I was swept towards one door of the passenger car. As we passed the corridor, I caught another glimpse of the ticket gate. The men who were once there were now gone, and the only thing that remained was the profile of the horse made of glossy tiles, glaring back at me in the shade of deep crimson. Representative of the Septian Church. The train barreled on, almost flying through the thick veil of fog. Droplets of water splattered against the window glass, extending out like transparent veins, and continued to wriggle back and forth under the pressure of the swiftly passing wind. Placing the temple of my head against the glass, I stared blankly down at the tickets in my hand, and rubbed the two of them together between my fingers. I would be traveling by train to the border city far south of its imperial cousin, and then to reach the liberal kingdom, I would have to transfer to an airship. Both my tickets were first class, but not the highest end seats available. The passenger car was nearly at full capacity, but for some particular reason, nobody had seated themselves in the space next to mine. As I mused about the empty seat, it occurred to me that Mick may have purchased the spot ahead of time, leaving it vacant on purpose. There was no doubt in my mind that he was being paid handsomely to make sure this job was done and done well. Will you be traveling to the liberal kingdom, sir? Right around the time my trip on the rails had passed its halfway mark, I was met with this sudden question set up with a start. My eyes searched for the one who asked it. There, standing in the aisle, was a single woman with a radiant complexion beaming down at me. She wore a coat with overlapping buckles secured slightly above her breast and appeared to be in, I think, her mid-30s. I was hitting B, not A. Gingerly bending her knees and pointing her finger at the empty seat beside me, she asked, "Do you mind?" With a tilt of her head, she indicated the rear of the passenger car, where swirling smoke saturated the air, and softly muttered, "The smell from the tobacco smoke is just dreadful." Wordlessly, I nodded and dragged my bag from its place on the floor, moving it over by the window to the opposite side of my feet. The woman expressed her thanks and delicately sat herself down in the seat next to mine. For being a perfect stranger, she talked on endlessly, and I appropriately reciprocated the conversation by saying that I was on my way to the liberal kingdom on business as an orbment specialist. Her story was that she was on a mission of mercy for the church and had an errand to fulfill in the border city. "Just so you know, people sometimes refer to me as sister," she went on. "Of course, it's just a nickname." She recrossed her black leather boot-clad legs and let out a sort of surprised titter from the back of her throat as she made mention of this. Sister Cornelia was her nickname. Need a drink. There's a lot of words, man. I was like, oh, sweet. Cornelia's only 11 chapters. That's going to be real nice. No. The pages are 10 rather than 7 and 8 like the other ones. So it doesn't even matter. We continued on in this fashion, subjecting ourselves to a variety of idle banter. And as the time drew on, the sun overhead began to dip in its arc, crossing the celestial meridian and descending into the west. Each time the moving train cleared a grove of trees, the entire vehicle, passenger cars and all, was bathed in a warm apricot hue, flooding into the cabins, creating a majestic spectacle. I gaped at the... Dude, do we just try to like have the most fucking... I gaped at the coruscating effect, and in doing so, locked eyes with Sister Cornelia right at the moment. Brilliance of the sinking western light seeped into her rich brown irises, causing them to give off an exquisite rubescent sparkle. Dude. The glimpse made me wonder if the origin of her nickname was somehow related to the color of her eyes being likened under the luster of a polished carnelian stone. The train gradually began to decelerate, and Sister Cornelia returned to her original seat in order to collect her bags. As a matter of habit, I checked my bag in the orbment and found both the junk paper covered package and the magical device fastened into my trousers inner pocket by a series of chain stitches, exactly where and how I'd left it. A woman's voice came over the intercom system announcing that the train would be arriving on schedule and rainy weather was to be expected at our destination. At the conclusion of the announcements, a number of disappointed sighs could be heard coming from along the rows of seats. Raindrops pattered against the windows outside as the looming silhouette of the overcast city came into view. The station's signal lamp emitted an angular light, which was scattered with a refractive effect by the falling droplets of water. Then came a spine-chilling metallic sound, followed by the jolt of the orbital engines reverse thrusting as the locomotive at the front of the train lurched to a halt. Jesus. Over the loudspeaker came another announcement asking passengers to ensure that they did not leave their baggage behind, and with that, several people stood up and crowded into the aisle. Watching a station worker in uniform as he waved a small flag amidst the falling rain, I picked up my bag and rose to my feet. I crossed paths with Sister Cornelia as I attempted to step into the aisle, but when she tried to step aside and allow me room to pass, she suddenly tripped and fell forward. Grabbing onto my shoulder for support, she picked herself up and with an embarrassed smile let me by. I gave her a short bow in line with general etiquette practices, then headed for the exit ahead of her. Following my lead, Sister Cornelia shuffled along closely behind me, so close in fact that it felt as if she would step on my heels. Something about it just didn't feel right. Instinctively, sliding my right hand in my pocket, I searched for my orbment, but the brass feeling I had grown accustomed to was nowhere to be felt. In an instant, I felt my arm being twisted behind my back by someone or something with incredible strength. The sleek sound of a blade being unsheathed and then a warning prick at the tip at my back indicated the seriousness of the situation. "I have what you're looking for, Toby," whispered Sister Cornelia in an almost inaudible tone, her lips barely moving just behind my right ear. "Let's not try anything either, shall we? I'd hate to see your afternoon spoiled any more than it's going to be." And to show that she meant business, Sister Cornelia slightly altered the angle of her grip on my wrist, causing an explosion of agony that sent sparks flashing behind my eyes. Bro got caught. Human fodder. Sister Cornelia spoke to me in a tender tone as she sent a wave of immense pain rushing through the whole of my right hand. "I won't have any trouble with you now, will I, Toby?" she asked. Far from eyes just brimming with tears, I nodded my head in consent as the salty streams of water ran down my face. Satisfied with my answer, she loosened her grip, and I felt the pain vanish as if it had all been some sort of illusion. With a wry smile, she further added, "Don't get me wrong, Toby. I've been sent here to protect you by the goddess herself." This is what she said while instructing me to keep my eyes focused on what lay beyond the window glass. Yet there was something about the way she pronounced the last syllable of my name that really rubbed me the wrong way. Little by little, the line of passengers slowly began to flow out of the train car. Prodded on by Sister Cornelia, I inched forward while keeping my gaze on the platform through the passenger car window. Down the stairs which led to the front ticket gate were the figures of those men from earlier this morning, the three thug-like passengers who had been loitering near the large horse emblem of tile at the Imperial Station. A muffled laugh echoed from her throat as she too noticed them. "Well, isn't this a warm reception party you've got going on?" Cocking my head, I quietly pleaded, "Give me back my orbment." Sister Cornelia said nothing. Members of the crew bid us farewell as we stepped through the exit to disembark the train onto the lead-colored platform below. Angrily, I thought to myself, "Damn it, what's wrong with these fools? Can't they see what's going on?" I shut my eyes halfway to protect them from the drizzle whipping against my face, and I unhurriedly descended the wet set of stairs, a half pace at a time. Sister Cornelia moved along behind me at precisely the same length of stride. Below, the group of thugs waited expectantly at the bottom of the stairs, waited for me, no doubt. Contemplating the rate at which I was going, I ultimately believed it was only a matter of time before I would be handed over to the enigmatic group. I caught sight of their soured faces as the distance between us grew smaller, and I felt the heat of my left hand tightly gripping my bag grow in intensity until my palm began to sweat profusely. Hitting the midway point on the stairs, Sister Cornelia suddenly whispered in my ear, "Keep your eyes on the ground, Toby." I did as I was told and cast my gaze down upon the tips of my boots, stained to a darker shade by the rainwater. Then right at the moment I let out my breath, I felt a deep sense of pressure just below my shoulder blades as I was forcibly shoved down. Droplets flew from my saturated fingers and my world turned upside down as I tumbled down the stairs and slammed back first into the slammed back first into the group of hoodlums. With a muffled crunch, I felt the painful sensation of my ribs crumple under the weight of my body, and then return to normal from their severely compressed state. Two of the seemingly military men who were hit as I toppled down the stairs like an avalanche unleashed on a pair of young saplings, absorbed the transfer of the force and were thrown into a large puddle collecting on the ground nearby. Shrieks erupted from startled passengers nearby, more shrill than the high-pitched sound of the railway brakes from the damn dude, from a decelerating locomotive. As my world spun wildly about me, Alright, whatever. As my world spun wildly about me, I lay there, the chill of the tiles seeping into my back. With a concerted effort, I rolled my eyes to the left where my arm remained in an outstretched state. By some act of the goddess, I had managed to keep my tight 5-finger grip on the bag I had been carrying. In an effort to get up, I slid into a prostrate position, keeping my chin in contact with the ground, making a low visual sweep of the vicinity as if my life depended on it. I noticed the military-like physiques of the men had vanished from view. The only figure I saw standing above me now on the platform was that of Sister Cornelia. And on her shoulder, as if she were merely hefting a sack of grain, was one of the men. Turning in the direction where the train sat in its motionless state, she lobbed the unfortunate man down onto a set of empty rail tracks below. By this time, I had risen to one knee while keeping the other planted firmly on the ground in a half-standing position. The world in front of me was still swaying, undulating in my wavering eyesight. My head slowly rocked back and forth with it as the double vision of Sister Cornelia's boots approached me. Then, with a strong grip, she tugged on my hand. For some strange reason or another, when she did this, I failed to notice the unpleasant feeling that her hand wrapped around mine brought. "Let's go, Toby," she instructed in an authoritative voice. Nearly dragging me, she pulled me to my feet, and before long, we were hightailing it out of there. The onlookers made quite a commotion as they moved hastily out of the way in a determined attempt not to be caught up in the middle of our flight path. The bag in my left hand swung helplessly, knocking against my thigh. After clearing the ticket gate, Sister Cornelia finally let go of my hand, but a sickening, slippery sensation came with it. Looking over her, I realized that the stomach-churning, slimy feeling on my hand had come from her bright red blood, which stained both of hers. I peered back over my shoulder in the direction of the platform as I continued to run, but the figures of those 3 men who had been waiting for me at the station were nowhere to be found. Jesus! Was it this one? It's 5, right? Yes, it was 5. I have to remind myself which one I'm reading. Wait, let me do this. There we go. Emissary of the Sabbath. I sat staring at a particularly melted lump of butter on a stack of cold pancakes. Picking up a fork, I poked at them, and after turning the top one over, I dabbed the milky yellow substance between the rubbery layers. In doing so, my interest in what sat atop the plate faded to nil. A hanging lamp dangled overhead, making a sporadic buzzing sound as its honey-colored light flickered, creating jittery shadows and distorting my vision within the inn. The pouring rain outside didn't appear as if it would let up anytime soon either. Bringing my face closer to the window, I peered through the film of water flowing down the outside of the glass as I tried to make out the dimly lit avenue. Although the station house sat right at the end of the road from where we were lodged, all that was visible was the side of the structure obscured by a shadow which prevented me from being able to see the platform. "There's nothing to be worried about," said Sister Cornelia as she returned, wiping her hands with a handkerchief as white as newly driven snow. Stretching the square strip of cloth out, she sat down and placed it neatly on her lap like a napkin. Then in a reassuring tone, she added, "We've seen the last of them for a while." Watching the tips of her fingers move as she smoothed out the wrinkles and the piece of fabric resting on her legs, I was hit with a sudden flashback. reviving the awful sight and coppery scent of the sticking blood which had covered those hands not more than a few hours before. How can you be so certain? I asked, still having more than a few reservations. Because that's how these types of crime syndicates work, she replied, clearly seemingly to know all the answers. The waiter came and set a plate in front of Sister Cornelia with a soft clink as the base of the glassy dish tapped lightly against the hard surface of the table. After scooting the meat-laden porcelain plate closer to her, she licked off the sauce now covering the tips of her fingers in almost a sensual way. Sickened by the bloody image already in my mind, and now the sauce, I tossed my fork aside and leaned heavily back in my chair. Damn. The city outside began to fade into shades of gray, and by the time Sister Cornelia was finished tucking away her steak, it had completely sunk into the darkness of the night. I questioned her again. How can you be so certain that no one will come after us? Using a piece of black-crusted bread to wipe up the last drops of sauce, she answered, because that's how they function. One unit consists of 3 people. Then, as if remembering something else important, she added, that group was after you. They're a Jaeger Corps. Upon hearing this, I recalled seeing some of those men at the landing port some time ago. Only the most renowned and skilled of mercenary groups have the honor of calling themselves a Jaeger Corps. Or at least that's what Mick had told me about them. They were soldiers of fortune who were said to relentlessly follow the flow of mirror wherever that happened to lead, and they wouldn't stop at nothing to get at it, even if it meant spilling blood. Warhawks, mercenaries without borders, and a group never to be involved with, is what Mick had often had the habit of saying about them. Instinctively, I slid my foot forward and checked the location of my bag with the tip of it. It's quite simple, really, Sister Cornelia explained as she reached for her dessert. You, Toby, are carrying something that's apparently got a lot of people on edge, and someone's hired a Jaeger Corps to take you out. But it's not me they're after, it's what I'm carrying. It's all the same, she retorted as she gulped down her cup of tea in a single breath. They're going to kill the courier before they even think about searching the contents of his bag. A butcher kills a cow before someone grills the steak, not the other way around. Lecturing me all the while, Sister Cornelia took a glossy, tallow-handled tallow-handled knife in hand and sliced into her apple pie. The powdered sugar sprinkled on the flaky crust danced under the golden light. I felt a stabbing pain of guilt race through me, just above my gut. Unexpectedly, I began to think about what Mick could be doing at the moment. But my short period of rumination was cut short when I saw Sister Cornelia's hands stop cold. Glaring into the darkness, I focused and intent like a hunting dog's. She tossed something shiny onto the table and eventually rose to her feet. There it was, my orbment. Where are you going? Without pausing to answer my question, Sister Cornelia expeditiously fastened the buckle of her coat. You've got good taste, Toby. One at a time, she set her heels on the chair and tightened her bootlaces. Using the full capabilities of that orbment is no small feat. I think even most bracers would be in for a real surprise if push came to shove with you in the ring. Growing ever more patient, I asked again, so where is it exactly that you're going? That's none of your concern, came the answer. Suffice it to say, I will be seeing you again on the morrow. And with that, Sister Cornelia disappeared through the door of the women's restroom. As if exchanging places, 2 other men entered the restaurant. They walked directly to the table at which I sat and stood before me. Flashing the emblem on his chest and without making any sort of eye contact, one of the men said, "We're with the Bracer Guild. I apologize for disturbing you in the middle of your evening meal, but you'll need to come with us." Ooh, Jesus. Ascertaining the inner workings. My orbment emptied bag and package wrapped in old magazine paper were laid out neatly on the table in front of me. The bracer sitting opposite me gazed alternately at my face and the items on the table as if to gauge my reaction to them. Constantly rubbing his chin between his fingers, it appeared to me as though he were making an effort to display his right hand, snugly fit with a leather gauntlet. It had been led to the second. I had been led to the second floor of the lodge by the two men, and then after they had painstakingly checked the layout of the floor, I was taken to the farthest room from the stairs. It occurred to me that the reason for the use of the makeshift space was due to there being no guild branch nearby. The first man to sit in front of me was the lanky one. He told me his name, but I soon forgot which one was Clayton and which one was Pavel. About the time I had finished being frisked, the bracer wearing the gauntlets, Clayton or Pavel, whoever it was, returned and whispered something in his partner's ear. It seemed as though they were trying to locate Sister Cornelia, but having no luck. After much probing on the subject of her and the Jaeger Corps, and after relating everything I had heard from her on the train, I turned the conversation around and played the role of victim, inquiring into her past history. But strictly speaking, I guess I was in fact a victim. Peace. Her name was Selnate, Ein Selnate. Read aloud the lanky bracer from a pocketbook he had just below eye level. Originally a constituent member of a Jaeger Corps, her present affiliation and activities are unknown. In short, added his partner pompously, she's not the type of person any upstanding citizen should be getting involved with. He reached out his Gauntlet Clan hand and picked up the object bundled in scrap paper. Checking my reaction all the while, he unwrapped the paper, laying it out flat in the center of the table. Its contents turned out to be a lump of metal ingrained with a sort of clay-like substance. I blurted out, I was on my way to a research institute with the item when everything happened, and then threw in the address of some non-existent client for good measure. The bracers took notes, making sure not to leave any of the details of our conversation. Then, to dispel any lingering suspicion, I agreed to stay with them under their watchful eyes for the night. The next day, I also found myself inclined to go along with them to the nearest guild branch in order to file a report about the events that happened back at the station, but I had no qualms over the matter. My greatest concern at the moment, after all, was not running into any more trouble. I awoke as the sun came over the horizon and day broke. With the advent of a peaceful morning, I sat up in bed and breathed a sigh of relief. The bracers who had stood guard the previous night were no longer present in the room, but the sound of their voices could be heard echoing out in the hallway beyond the closed door. Slipping my arms through the sleeves of my jacket, I felt a sharp pain in my right elbow, which brought back vivid memories of the woman from the day before. Suddenly, a feeling of uneasiness came over me, and still half undressed, I began adjusting my ornament. After opening its back cover, I used a thin piece of tan doeskin and started plucking out the quartz installed in each slot. It didn't take but 5 minutes to insert them each into different slots and rearrange their configuration with a set of light magic as my base. That's interesting though, it says light magic. And I mean, I guess this is technically supposed to be a fictional thing, but light magic doesn't exist. But like, reality is, we know that Toby specializes in space magic, so it's probably meaning to say space magic, because I think specifically the space one is labeled as sky. I don't remember them, but that's what it means. It means the skin, what's it called ones? The space ones. And that's kind of Toby's thing. One by one, I replaced each screw until finally the metallic panel was back in place, and as feelings of calmness set in, I rolled back over in bed. It was at that time that a tall woman appearing to be a maid opened the door carrying a basin, whatever you want to call it, of hot water for the sink, with which guests could shave and wash their faces. After placing the small steaming tub on the table, the woman went quietly about her daily tasks of removing the bed linen. Finding myself shooed from my own bed, I reluctantly headed toward the basin. When just beyond the open door, I caught sight of two shadows cutting across the hallway in succession. They're here, I heard myself mutter as the low tone of my suppressed voice reached my ears. With only a bar of soap in hand, I remained unbelievably calm as I quickly shut and bolted the door, then pondered my next move. I stood still with my back pressed up against the wall. On the other side of the hardened clay wall, the brief clamor of fighting ensued. Fumbling with the chain attached to my hip pocket, I grabbed hold of the orbment I had adjusted just barely moments before. It was 2 braces versus the 2 others I had seen moments ago. Throwing myself into the mix with the 2 men from the guild would definitely put us at an advantage from a numbers standpoint. However, when I turned again to face the door, the voice of self-doubt came percolating through my closed lips in the form of a distant mutter. There were only 2 of them, I murmured to myself. If Sister Cornelia's words were to be believed, then one unit consisted of 3 people, not 2. Again, I questioned myself inwardly. Then where's the third? The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and as I realized my plight, something swung down over top of my head, catching me around the neck, and the next instant I was flung to the ground. From the corner of my blurred and spotty vision came the inexplicable view of a woman with demonic bloodshot eyes standing over me, trying to wrench the very life out of me with every twist of the sheet she had wrapped tightly around my throat. Clutching my orbment in hand, I activated it and fired off a burst of magic while lying half asphyxiated on the wooden planks of the room floor. The destructive vortex of compressed air sliced deeply into my hip, but at the same time caused the woman to double over before forcefully blowing her to another part of the room. Shreds of whirling linen, flecked and sprayed with fresh blood, blasted out through the gaping hole in the wall where a closed window once stood, leaving nothing behind but shards of broken glass and a frame rent beyond all repair. Alright, we're on 7. I need to pause for a minute. Alright, let's finish this reading. Maybe. Game doesn't break. Game? Nah, there we go. Oof. It is toasty in here. The death of a friend. Wheezing, I breathed in the sound high and whistling as the air fought to make it through my constricted windpipe. Still clutching tightly to my orbment, I unwound the sheets from my throat. Utterly exhausted, I tilted my head on its side and watched with reddened eyes as a small stream of saliva dribbled down over the edge of my mouth and pooled onto the floor. When fresh air finally made its way into my lungs, it initially choked me nearly as bad as the sheet had. A thump from somewhere behind me startled me from my fit. The Jaeger demoness, like a spring-loaded doll, leapt up from the floor of the room. The single shot of magic I had previously landed in her gut should have done the trick, but the fluid way she moved about made it appear as if she was unfazed by the blast. Within arm's reach of where I had subconsciously curled myself came the splintering sound of unseasoned wood being hewn down by a giant woodcutter's axe. In the following instant, Sister Cornelia came flying through a newly opened hole in the timber door, her entry punctuated by a cloud of splinters, her arms as pliant as whips. She passed by the female Jaeger in a lightning-quick motion and, with a turning assault, clocked her opponent full tilt in the face. Ouch. The woman spun with the force of the blow and fell with a tumultuous thud. Her head cracking hard against the floor. Like a prima ballerina, Sister Cornelia raised her knee high until she had it tucked securely up against her sternum. She stared down at the outstretched figure on the floor, muscles flexed, and without an ounce of mercy, Sister Cornelia let her judgment fall with the heel of her boot, stomping down and crushing the wretched woman's throat. As I witnessed the grotesque and unsightly scene, Sister Cornelia gave a quick glance in my direction and beckoned me on. Then with a nimble hop into the unknown before her, she cleared the broken window frame and lighted to the ground below. Quickly scraping my belongings together, I made after her in the same manner as she had left, out the window with a 2-story drop to the cobblestone side road below. Waiting close by and helping to break my less than elegant fall, Sister Cornelia led me on as we took flight along the avenue, brightly lit by the morning sun. A deafening blare from an orbital engine's whistle indicated that the first train was about to depart. Sister Cornelia immediately pulled a ticket from out of her coat pocket and held it out to me from the side. Reaching for the fluttering strips of paper between her fingers, I realized that I was still carrying the bar of soap from before, so I chucked it, not caring where it landed on or who it might hit. Aboard the train, the smoggy haze from the incessant smoking of the nattering gentleman had permeated into every nook and cranny of the passenger car. There was also the smell of newly printed publications and the occasional sound of someone clearing their throat. It felt rather awkward to have boarded a train bound for the Imperial City with my bag still in hand. "Do you know what your problem is, Toby?" Sister Cornelia remarked. "You're just like that orbman of yours." Using her white handkerchief, she stanched the flow of blood from my leg, which had been lacerated by the spinning arrow blades of the magic. "Once you get yourself into trouble, you keep digging yourself in deeper until someone comes along with a billy club and whacks some good sense into you." Placing a folded magazine on my lap, she tapped on it with the nail tip of her index finger, indicating that I should read what was inside. It was a copy of the Imperial Chronicle, which had been published just that morning. A several-lined article buried pages behind more titillating news told of the suspicious death of one orbital factory owner somewhere within the capital. This was the first time I had ever become aware of Mick's real age. Sister Cornelia continued her lectures as she mercifully upbraided me for my reckless behavior. "You missed being caught up in all of this by a hair's breadth," she informed me coolly. At a loss for words over the shock of Mick's death, I put the magazine in my trench coat pocket. Another 5 minutes in that shop and you would have gone to meet your maker too. I shook my head and with trembling lips let my thoughts fumble out of my mouth. "I just don't get it. Why did Mick have to die?" Images of Mick's cold body behind the counter alternated in my mind with that lump of metal wrapped in scrap paper. Just what the hell had I been carrying all this time, and why did anyone have to die over it? I pondered at length. Sister Cornelia met my eyes and held them. "Because it's an artifact," she said simply. "An artifact?" I scoffed as I blew off her answer. "It's not like I haven't carried a bunch of them before." Artifacts, in short, were the remaining legacy of an ancient civilization and the generic term for an unidentifiable mechanism which resembled that of an ornament. I had spent my days as a courier smuggling any number of those items under the false pretense that the goods I was carrying were nothing more than rare antiques, and readily placed them in the hands of those aristocrats, amongst whom they were especially in vogue. And for the most part, my current possession appeared as though it belonged in the same group as the others. Personally, I could find no other value in the collecting of these artifacts besides the indulgence of one's self in a decadent hobby. Chiding me as if I were a clueless child, Sister Cornelia rebuked. "You're wrong, Toby. This one's much different than the others." After a moment's pause, she added, "It's alive." Unable to grasp what she had meant, I looked at her with a questioning expression on my face. Sister Cornelia tried again. "What I'm trying to tell you is that it still works. Although I'm not really sure what kind of power it actually has. It was unearthed during an excavation within the Empire's territory about 30 years ago." Sister Cornelia's subsequent story about the peculiar lump of metal told of the dark history surrounding a group of aristocrats who relentlessly sought after it. The artifact itself had transitioned from hand to hand by those in power, as one after another they were murdered while slumbering in their bedchambers. Then at the end of the 100 Days' War, its whereabouts were said to have been lost. And strangely enough, it's finally turned up in the capital after all this time, she said, finishing up the account. An announcement chimed in the passenger car, notifying those riding of the scheduled time of arrival. Sister Cornelia uncrossed and recrossed her long legs. "The one who is after that artifact hired that Jaeger Corps to bring it to them, whatever the cost. So as a result, I was dispatched by the church in order to protect both you and it from falling into their hands. I sat staring down at the bag resting next to my feet as we approached our destination, and the moving train quietly began to lose speed. Jesus. 8. In the bowels of the Imperial City, moving purposefully through the crowd, we made our way between the rows of seats. Each time the swinging bag in hand struck the side of my knee, I became keenly aware of its presence. It was an unnerving feeling, quite like I had unintentionally brushed up against someone in an offensive way. Furthermore, it was nearly inconceivable to my mind that the ancient relic the Jaeger Corps were pursuing with such a frenzy was sitting right inside the stitch cloth of this cheap handbag. What a fool Mick had been. Hadn't he known the burden of this object would be? What? That's a shot as well, by the way. Hadn't he known the burden of this object would be one far more weighty than the both of us could have ever hoped to bear. I think the would bring was supposed to be something else, and they just changed what they wanted to say. But the would bring is probably not supposed to be there. Would bring a far hefty, or I don't know, man. Would bring a far more weight. No, I don't know, man. Would be far more weighty, I think, is just the answer. I think the would bring is just not supposed to be there. I squeezed my eyes shut against the thoughts flying around my mind and addressed Sister Cornelia, who followed closely behind me. Will we be making a break for the cathedral once we get off? Yes, that was the plan, she answered, scanning the scene outside the window of the passenger car. I think that's the only option we've got if you want to make it through this day alive. The station where the train was set to arrive was unremittingly crowded with countless droves of passengers, and as usual, the sky was slightly overcast. Everyone outside on the platform stood shivering in silence, with their collars drawn up to their ears, huddling close to one another for warmth, like a flock of waterfowl out on the tidelands in midwinter. Don't worry, I won't be tossing you down a flight of stairs this time, Toby, jested Sister Cornelia. Although if there were 2 more of you at my disposal, I might have decided otherwise, she added. Evidently, the numbers in our welcome party this time had seen a rather dramatic increase. The odds don't appear to be in our favor, she said in a low voice. Her warm breath tickled the lobe of my ear. We won't be able to leave through the ticket gate. As soon as we stepped off the train, we stealthily moved to the opposite end of the platform, and after sneaking out a large door for only authorized station personnel, we jumped down into the path of railroad ties and steel rails below. The biting cold wind of the capital swept freely across the unobstructed railroad tracks, causing me to shudder as it ruffled our coats with its chilly touch. Slipping between the couplers of a pair of freight cars, we moved cautiously along their edge, sticking close to the shadows. Over on the cargo platform, workers were busy unloading containers. For someone who had his mind set on becoming a dealer of pilfered goods, gaining illicit entry into the station house would be one of the first of all basics. Jeez. Showing my ticket, I spoke politely to one of the workers. Then, with a scenario picked out in my head, I sold it to him as I played the part of a manager here on business with a celebrity of notable repute. Midway through our conversation, I introduced Sister Cornelia, who did her best to show the man a glamorous smile and feminine pose. I'd possibly gone a bit overboard when I stated that she was an opera singer, because the way that she carried herself made her look more akin to a low-wage sell song in a bar of drunkards. Yet in spite of it all, the worker graciously let us through. You're so good at that it's almost scary, Toby, Sister Cornelia said as we raced through the station's warehouse sector. You should seriously consider doing another job, she went on. I bet you're going to tell me to join the Bracer Guild, right? Come on, those guys would turn me down in a heartbeat, I said as I laughed off the thought. Then throwing the idea back in her court, I asked, so how about yourself? Why don't you join the Bracer Guild? Ooh. Reaching the end of the warehouse sector, we came to a stop in front of a large chain link fence. Sister Cornelia crouched down and while sliding a drainage cover to the side, laughed at my previous question as if it were insane. Are you kidding me, she asked. They'd gunned me down the second I set foot into one of their branches. The winding, narrow stone tunnels, like the one we were in, ran everywhere beneath the capital. We crawled along as the light shining down through the drainage grates on the side of the large road above us illuminated the way like a trail of flickering orbital lampposts. Jeez. The feet of those walking along the avenue passed right by where we were, but not a single person noticed us scraping our way along below them. And for some strange reason or another, the world just beyond the thin flagstone paved road appeared so dazzling in my eyes. Yet the Jaeger Corps, loss of the artifact in hand, and a senseless sudden death, all of which had never crossed my mind before, lay in wait for me, dared I to venture into the open world above. As we pressed on, I began to think that the small route tunnel which we were crawling through would run on forever. When finally emerged with a high-ceiling sewer surrounded by walls of countless blocks of chiseled stone. We'll go through here and make our way over to where the cathedral is located, Sister Cornelia insisted. Raising one brow, she pointed her finger upwards. It's a lot safer down here than it is up there. That's fine and all, but what are we going to do if it gets attacked? Sister Cornelia grabbed my hand and with that stepped into the muddy darkness beyond. Don't worry, Toby, she reassured me. Faith isn't the only thing supporting the church. Cornelia. The flicker of dying orbital lamps mounted at equidistant lengths along the sewer walls sent thin streaks of light across the surface of rippling flow of filthy sewage. Passing in front of these one by one, Sister Cornelia sped down the stone sidewalk as the sound of her body cutting through the racing tunnel winds trailed out behind her. Panting and out of breath, I continued to move my feet toward the darkness which lay before me as I chased after Sister Cornelia's flickering shadow. Wayworn, yet without a moment of repose. Can't tell if I need to burp or not. We headed unrelentingly with our sights set on the Cathedral of the Septian Church. We moved swiftly across the moss-covered stone pavement, the clacking of our heels echoing in the dimly lit underground. Above ground, the walking distance on the city roads from the railway station to the cathedral was about 3 blocks. If we made our way up through the drainage ditch just beyond the sluice gate. Sluice? I don't know, man. I've never seen that word before, honestly. Sluice? Slice? I don't know, man. We would find ourselves in the public square outside the massive sanctuary. Up ahead, the light of another orbital lamp came into view. Turning her head in my direction and without a word, Sister Cornelia extended her right hand outward in a wide motion, indicating that we would be turning that way at the next corner. Then, as if preparing for something, she rolled both shoulders in a grinding motion and relieved the last of her tension with a pop of the neck. It seemed to me as though she knew all too well what was lurking within the, Trenbus conduit ahead. Under the unsteady and sporadic coruscation of light, the body of Sister Cornelia surged around the corner and disappeared from view. 1, 2, 3 went the walloping echoes, followed by the sound of something being rolled into the channel of filthy sludge. As I turned the corner, the first things which leapt into my sight were the contorted figures of 2 men on the ground, whom I barely missed treading on. Sister Cornelia, who was by this time several steps ahead, continued to run at her usual pace, as if nothing had happened during the preceding seconds. "It's Cornelia," came an angry but noticeably wavering voice from behind. I glanced to my rear to locate its source, and there I found a man who had dragged himself from the fecal-filled liquid, now lying next to his dead comrades, yelling with his dying breath as blood leaked out of his open mouth. "Cornelia, she's down here," he managed to croak before falling silent and still. Sister Cornelia paid no attention nor made any effort to look back. I turned my face forward and followed her example. The walls of the conduit led directly to the sluice gate, squared out into an ominous mouth of darkness, seemingly waiting for its next unsuspecting meal. Sister Cornelia gradually slowed her pace to match mine, as I had by this time become completely exhausted and out of breath. It looks like these guys are dead serious about getting their hands on that item this time, she said as she focused her eyes on the darkness before us. So were those men old friends of yours or something? I inquired. Sister Cornelia turned to face me with her darkened scarlet eyes. Is that what you heard from those bracers the other day? She asked. I nodded my head and questioned her no further. With head slightly turned down, I forced myself onwards, eyes fixed on the tip of my boots. Unexpectedly, Sister Cornelia opened her mouth and said, "Do you remember that woman you had a run-in with back at the inn?" I nodded slightly. The whole reason I gave up my life as a mercenary is because I didn't want to meet a tragic end like that. She continued, a life of no meaning, forgotten by all. I looked up at Sister Cornelia and, seeing a slight show of emotion in the side of her face, heard her repeat the same line of words a few times before finishing her thoughts. Damn, dude. If I'm going to cash in my life's chips, then I think it's best that I fight for something worth fighting for. At least that way I'd be able to leave a legacy of my existence behind. Taking in her words, I ran steadily beside her as I felt a sense of nondescript apprehension slowly begin to creep over me. During the short intervals between breaths, it suddenly seemed as if I were hearing the faint sound of sloshing water from behind, which caused me to prick up my ears. What? Wouldn't that be pick up my ears? I don't know. Prick up my ears and turn my head in its direction. So you noticed it too, huh, Toby? Sister Cornelia slowed her step until finally coming to a complete stop. They blockaded us from behind, so there's no turning back now, she said, the direness of our situation heavy in her voice. We'd arrived at an intersection where the conduit we were in and another crossed paths, and just beyond the wide fetid flow of sewage water before us, I could see the dimly lit sluice gate. I placed my back against the damp bricks of the nearest wall and for a moment tried to catch my breath. They're probably lying in wait for us, Sister Cornelia assessed slaughteredly after glaring across the flowing sewage of the merged channels, and then turned her head to the rear and narrowing her eyes again. And unfortunately, this time we won't be able to circumvent them. With the sound of composure revealing her utmost resolve, Sister Cornelia took in a few deep breaths. I laid hand on my orbment, gripping it in the palm of my sweaty hand, and then wrapped the strap of my bag securely around my opposite wrist. As always, Sister Cornelia checked her boots before standing upright. Then, taking a few steps back and holding my breath, I raced forward and darted into the Stygian flow of waste. Man, they really like using big words. It's crazy. The last stand. Sister Cornelia made such haste as she aimed for the path on the opposite side of the sludge-filled channel that I could have sworn she was actually running on the liquid surface, based on my observation of the minuscule spatters her feet produced. And of course she passed me by in the blink of an eye, the space growing wider and wider between us. I continued to trudge my way through the filthy muck. Flashes of magic erupted from the darkness by the sluice gate and ripped through the air in rapid succession. But none of them could overtake the speed at which Sister Cornelia moved. In an unyielding offensive by the shadowed aggressors, the settled flatulence, gross, in the depths of the channel was thrown up in the form of a powerful tsunami. It's a shit-nami. And in the instance before clearing myself from its destructive path, I feared that the terrible wall of sedimented filth would crush me under its weight and bring me to an unsightly end. With a mid-air spin to avoid the last of the oncoming magic, Sister Cornelia flew to the opposite side of the channel with incredible speed, hurdling the walls of piled-up sandbags behind which the attackers took cover. She whirled her arms in a ferocious onslaught. One by one, like rows of pins being struck by a weighted object, the line of standing Jaegers crumbled to the ground. Sister Cornelia's attacks were like a whirlwind of death, blurry with the speed at which they struck. They came in advancing at inconceivable angles, puncturing throats, slashing open arteries, and then they were gone. So it was that when I finally reached the cobbled path beyond the stagnant channel, not a soul was left standing besides Sister Cornelia and myself. The cathedral is at the end of a ladder just beyond this gate, she indicated as she flicked dripping blood from her fingers like a child who forgot a handkerchief to dry her wet hands. Peace. I'm almost done. Her eyes shone with the afterglow of battle. The Jaegers can't be far behind, so we'd better hurry, she warned. And as if to punctuate her warning, the damp sound of numerous feet kicking up water as they advanced towards our present location had now become clearly audible to my ears. Stepping over the handful of Jaeger corpses lying scattered about behind the wall of sandbags, we made our way for the dry bed channel which lay ahead of us. I placed my hands on the slightly damp stone floor of the empty channel and crawled through the half-open door of the sluice gate. A falling water droplet struck the nape of my neck as I passed through the cramped opening, causing me to stop dead in my tracks. In the moments that followed, I recognized the sound of an orbment overhead, on the verge of discharging a burst of magic. Toby, came the ostensible voice of Sister Cornelia as my vision was suddenly flooded with a wave of exceeding brightness. Then in the midst of this world of blinding light came the hand of a savior which grabbed me firmly by the shoulder. The powerful feeling of being dragged and the explosion produced by magic rupturing stone were almost simultaneous. As the booming roar swept across the whole of my body, I was thrown backwards toward the ground. Despite my clouded vision, I managed to somersault before landing in the prone position. Choking on the filthy puddle I had fallen face down into, I lifted my head in time to see a cloud of blackened dust being heaved from the mouth of the halfway raised sluice gate door, and as if my worst nightmare had now become reality, I watched as one after another the blockading Jaegers emerged from the smoky cloud, each bearing a glinted blade. I floundered about on the slippery mud and watched as their ranks sprang into action and closed in, their rugged facial features now visible to my eyes. Instantly rolling to the side, I unsheathed my hidden blade as I attempted to deflect a wide arching slash of another with my bag. The cloth of the bag over which the sharp edge ran split open without a sound, and the paper-wrapped orbment fell onto the cobbled floor. Frantically, I searched for the orbment at my side, but I was unable to get a grip on it because of my clumsy, pain-stricken state. One of the mercenary men, his eyes intent on my throat, drew back his longsword to end my life. But before he could make his move, a dark silhouette appeared from behind me. It was Sister Cornelia. Her hands, moving with such finesse, disarmed the man in an instant and left only his sword behind before he was launched from the view into the hanging shadows veiling the dank conduit. As the sound of the falling sword struck the ground in a high-pitched clink, Sister Cornelia dropped to her knees. Her soft, whispering voice were full of regret. "I'm sorry, Toby." With her head bowed forward, I watched in disbelief as several streaks of blood began to run down the side of her face. "It looks like the goddess may be calling you home too," she said gently. Once again, Sister Cornelia rose to her feet, her coat hanging in tatters. Eyeing her outer garment's ragged state, I knew for certain that it had been caused by the previous blast of magic. In order to protect me from harm, Sister Cornelia had willingly used her body as a shield to absorb the brunt of the force, and now a stain of effervescent crimson blood had begun to seep through the cloth covering her breast. I swiped up the artifact which had tumbled to the ground from the hole in my severed bag and tore away the wet paper which covered its surface. Then, with a cold lump of metal in hand, I placed it atop my orbment as I gripped them both tightly together. The sound of footfall from the Jaeger court had now subsided. They stood in a cluster with their swords drawn, effectively blocking any possible escape through the sluice gate. Sister Cornelia let out a shrill cry, and I, as if taking the sound to be a command to attack, unleashed the energy pent up within my orbment. The device roared, and at the instant the magic was discharged, I felt an intense wave of searing heat graze over my cheek as my entire body was immediately blown backwards by its powerful force. Stunned, I collapsed onto the floor. When I finally forced open my eyes, I could see Sister Cornelia standing above me with her back turned to face me. Her right arm had lost all strength to function and hung limply at her side. Dazedly, she slid to her knees and slumped onto the ground before me. I pulled Sister Cornelia close to myself and hugged her tightly. Blasted the pack. Blasted what? Oh, and hugging her tightly. I pulled Sister Cornelia close to myself and, hugging her tightly, blasted the pack of assailing mercenaries with an instantaneous wave of magic. But then it was all over, my last stand ending as soon as it had begun. Countless razor-sharp sword tips stared down at us from all sides. Convinced that I had finally reached my life's terminus, I raised my right hand, and while placing a false hope in my orbment that it could somehow protect us, I activated it, the last of its energy being consumed as it was drained to empty. Whirling arrow blades spun around us as I closed my eyes and accepted my fate. And behind my darkened eyelids, an endless realm of whiteness began to spread out before me. Last one. A legacy never to be forgotten. I was swallowed by the light only to be spewed moments later onto a patch of hardened ground. The air was filled with the scent of sun-baked earth. Yet for being the floor of some grandiose heavenly estate inherited by those in the afterlife, it felt quite like the flagstones I had grown accustomed to in my past life. Upon feeling around in my immediate surroundings, my searching hand found soft locks of disheveled hair. It seemed as though Sister Cornelia had come as well as I to meet our creator firsthand. Gradually, as I lay there, I felt something warm swell within the pit of my stomach. Weary and spent, I just let the feeling spread over me. It was about this time that the sound of murmurous voices started to fill the air around us. Warm breath tickled across my nose and brow, letting me know that I was being stared at directly in the face. As my eyes adjusted to the intensity of the light, I realized I was looking into the face of a young girl who beamed back at me brightly with the weirdest of smiles. However, she seemed a bit young to hold the esteemed position of the goddess. The knell of a bell overhead rang out loud and clear. Strangely, it had sounded exactly like the cathedral's distinctive toll. Taking in this series of events to be rather odd, I picked myself up and at last awakened from the dream which had temporarily invaded my senses. There it was, the familiar cityscape, the sounds, and even the scent of the breeze. I knew the place by heart. It was the public square of the imperial city which unfolded before the great cathedral of the Septian Church. I opened the fingers of my right hand and stared down at the metallic lump in its palm, entrusted to me by Mikt. Golden filaments of light swirled across the surface of the artifact. I instantly recalled Sister Cornelia's words. "It's alive," she had said. And as I watched the ancient light gradually fade away before closing my hand around its surface once more, I believed it. Supporting each other by wrapping our arms around one another's shoulders, Sister Cornelia and I hobbled and limped our way toward the magnificent cathedral as the awe-inspiring figure of the goddess Adios stood silently with unfurled wings watching over us from the deep-hued stained glass window above. And as for the events which followed, they were all settled in an orderly fashion. The metallic lump which Sister Cornelia had so daringly risked her life for was turned over to His Eminence, the Cardinal, who presided over the cathedral. He disappeared with it through the thick open door of the sacred vault. The level of corruption which had spread like a plague among the members of the imperial court, influential aristocrats, and even commissioned officers in the imperial army astonished even those mediators acting on behalf of the Bracer Guild. I stayed close by Sister Cornelia as she was laid out on a pew within the chapel of the cathedral. The real sisters of the church delicately pulled off her coat and cut open her vest, now stuck to her body with dried blood. Upon doing so, they found an ornate shirt of chainmail just beneath the layer of her clothing, which for some strange reason seemed to bewilder them all. The next day, a certain aristocrat who had hired the Jaeger court to carry out his selfish bidding agreed to relinquish the artifacts in his possession in return for keeping his estate. Hence, his collection of forbidden antiques were brought under the safekeeping of the Septian Church. Sworn to secrecy, I made immediate arrangements to take leave for the Calvard Republic. My destination, a high-class resort, which turned out to be an excellent way to recover physically and mentally, as well as forgetting about the series of events which had occurred over the past few days. Naturally, the bracers assigned to provide me escort were none other than Clayton and Pavel, who, before we left, guided me without a word to where Sister Cornelia was resting. I talked with Sister Cornelia, who had awoken for a short interval, but as I got up to leave, she reached out her dainty hand and said, "Before you go, I want to tell you my real name. It's Ein Selnet." I took her unblemished hand in mine and gripped it firmly as I expressed my appreciation for what she had done. And today, now 3 years later, I stood staring at her name once again, but this time printed on a page of the Imperial Chronicle. Ein Selnet. Below those printed characters ran the few lines of an unembellished article. Yesterday, a corpse was discovered in an urban area of the capital just before dawn. The body was found to be covered with multiple stab wounds. The departed in life had been involved in charitable work and brought salvation to many afflicted souls in various regions throughout the land. As I read the last line, I envisioned the deceased figure of Sister Cornelia laying motionless upon the darkened street. Yet despite the blood-stained face I envisioned in my mind, I saw her as she rested in peace, a gentle smile crossing her face and vindicated of any transgression in life. As I rolled up the copy of the magazine in hand, I brushed my hand lightly across the shining bracer emblem pinned on my chest. Almost 2 years had passed since I converted to my new line of work, which Sister Cornelia had so graciously recommended to me. And finally, I've even become used to using my real name, Toby, came the whisper of Sister Cornelia as it resurrected in my ears. Now only known as Toby, I pressed my forehead up against the cold-clouded window of the passenger car. The refulgent eyes of Sister Cornelia shined brightly like a carnelian stone, forever ingrained in my memory. In my mind's eye, I watched as her coat sleeves trailed out behind her and she dashed away into the darkness of my memories. Opening my eyes, I gazed out through the window glass, and there I saw the bleeding road-colored illumination of the Imperial City as it faded away beneath the heavy white fog. Jesus, I forget how long these books are. That one was a lot longer because I'm at 1 hour and 20 minutes and I did this first, so jeez. Holy crap. My voice needs a rest. It's even better. I could have read Cornelia in SC and I probably should have. But like, I totally forgot it's in the embassy. Because I was so focused on reading Dull Night because of the note that I totally forgot the Erebonian embassy has one as well. I may not even read the fucking Imperial Chronicle, especially if it's going to be that long. And I mean, it's just recounting the stuff that happened in the other games. Oh, we don't need to go this way. We need to go to the end, right? Yes.
これが出口？いや、次への入り口か。
拠点にあった魔法陣と同じ形をしてますね。
この先はまた別の場所につながっているということ？
おそらくな。覚悟を決めてから中に入った方が良さそうや。
Da, da, da.
Oh! 白ハヤブサの像ってことは ここは
Rancel.
間違いない。グランセルの南街区だ。
よかった。戻ってこられたんだ。
なんやリース、鳩が豆鉄砲食らったような顔して。
うん。
Teleporter's
一
still
つ
there.
聞きたいんだけど、グランセル市の門というのは？
え？
Oh, yeah. No.
あれって
なんだあれは。
The place is completely empty. You know, this is a clever reuse of the assets. Having the like main hub areas be monster infested. Because I don't know how much it's going to be like this, but it's showing that there's a lot of chests throughout everywhere.
甲冑の兵士さん。
No.
これはどうしてグランセルがオートがこんなことに。
さすがにこれは予想外やったな。俺らがあっちにおった間に何かあったのか。
影の国の影響がこちら側にも及んだのか。
ケビン神父、リース殿。すまないが、私はグランセル城に行ってみる。市民たちもそうだが、陛下や殿下の身が心配だ。
それやったら俺らも付き合いますわ。いくらユリアさんでも一人で行動するにはあまりにも危険ですやろ。
だが
焦りは禁物です。
I have... Okay.
このような異常事態にこそ冷静に行動すべきかと。
Oh, it doesn't have a total count, so let me put that up to view. Where is you? Okay, I need to put it higher, honestly. There we go. Oh, you're not pinned. That's why. There we go. Oh, and I gotta change your opacity. That's fine. Perfect. I just want to make sure I can see the chest total. Which already makes me nervous because it says 20, not 21. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be 21 right now. And that was a long time for it to not say 21. So we might have to go back and check for some chests.
君たちの言う通りだ。
よし、それじゃあ市街の様子を調べながら一旦
Let's see once we get the first chest in this area.
相当手強そうなんがうろついているみたいやから気を引き締めていこうか。
了解。
Alright, first up is the Orbital Factory. It says the third floor of the Orbital Factory. Over the 36. The place looked less like a shop and more like the newest secret playground for the local children. Long abandoned after the passing of its owner, but no, to clarify, it was not. It was very much in business. Nothing on his bookshelf. Yeah, it just became 21, so I think I'm missing a chest. We'll have to go back and check the first area. Oh, oops. I didn't see you behind the tree, Mr. Attacker, bro. What are you weak to? You are weak to time. So Soul Blur it is. It doesn't matter who we attack. I think it's better to just all target one. Same thing. We can do Vital Cannon. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. A weapon shop, but it says go through the upstairs? Oh, I see. Gotta go through the door. Go downstairs. Aha! 7 out of 30, 17 out of 36. Good riddance. The sun coldly muttered as he turned the key to lock the shop. This would be the last time he would be forced to ever step inside. I'll bet I can fetch a pretty mirror for his tools at the market. Yeah, it looks like it's actually like accurately tracking chests, so we'll have to come back. The house next door has one. Smelling salts. Sorry, but the magic palm that restocks all the chests hasn't come by here yet. Try again in another game. It used to say magic fairy, but now it says magic palm. The inn and then the east side exit. That's kind of confusing though, because I don't think the inn is here. Oh, I see. I see. Bride Phoenix. 9 out of 36. The story truly begins neither with Genevieve nor with Jubilee, but with the shop in the letter. Located in Bose, cramped between two of the most popular shops on the block, was a tiny, tiny building. That's just an entire story that's jammed into there. I said east side exit, right? It's probably this one. Yep, yep, yep. Wait, Father, I haven't finished my confession yet. Rest in pepperonis, man. North Block is next. So, the house near the south exit. It's not in there. If you stare into this chest and say Ouroboros 5 times, Blue Blanc will visit you at night. Yeah, no, not gonna do that ever. Thanks for advice on what to avoid. The hotel has one, so the hotel's over here. Oh, it actually has a lot of them. I did not realize that. Upper left door. That's the upper right one, but I guess. Oh, upper left. I get you. I get you. I get you. You gaze deeply into the empty chest, hoping for enlightenment. You feel hungry. I guess, man. There's one in the corridor. Inside the chest is an ancient note hinting at the location of the 8th Septarian. It crumbles to dust before you can read it. Shit, man. Now we'll never know. Lower left and upper right. Mira, Oh, here's the beginning. 1 out of 12. La 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 la. Hideko hummed before, barely audible over the sound of the vacuum. Suddenly, ding-dong went the doorbell. My, she claimed. Who could that be? I guess that's a different story, because that says 1 out of 12. And then we got one in here. 1 out of 36. You remember reading the teaser... You remember reading the teaser in Trails in the Sky second chapter for Trails in the Chest, but you didn't feel like reading it then, yet suddenly you have a craving for more Trails in the Chest. Oh, please tell me that's not going to be what that is. No, thank you. I appreciate it, but no. Next is the East Block. Oh, we can't go that way yet. I guess we're going to the castle first.
Nanji, 王宮の守り刀。皇室に自する豪剣とともに我が元に引き連れよ。さすれば扉を開かん。
Well, the guardian of the royal family is Julia. The blade that serves the imperial house would be Mueller. We don't have Mueller, though. Because, I mean, that's the only imperial person we have other than Olivier, but Olivier doesn't serve the imperial house. He is a part of the imperial house, so Mueller's the only one that would make sense. Guess we're fighting a monster. Oh, that is a lot of shit. No. Why is that all the way to the top now? I don't get that. Let's do this. Dude, that shit is potent. Can't get all three of them. Oh, there's three. We'll do that one then. Nice hits, nice hits. Tita can't do anything. Let's just do healing on herself. Oh, they're all bunched up. It's gonna be so nice because Kevin's gonna be able to annihilate so many of them. I think that was the most right there. Dude, that sound is just so pleasant. It doesn't matter. Only Kevin would be able to do it. Ooh, he is super not liking that. This is all Kevin's gonna do. Oh, he missed the big dude. That sucks. Man, they really want to kill Reese. Ooh. That was not nice. I forget she can't do that to herself, can't she? Can Tita reach her? She can. Okay. Need to have yeah, that was desperately needed. That strength up made the huge difference. Ding, 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 ding. There we go. East block's open now. Castle is not, though.
これは
魔法の紋章。
どうやら霊的な力で封印されているようですね。力ずくで突破するのは難しいかもしれません。
ああ、そのような雰囲気だな。やはり何かをしないとこの封印は解けないのか。
その可能性は高いですやろ。どうします？他を回ってもええですか？
ああ、今は陛下たちの無事を女神に祈るしかなさそうだ。一旦市街の探索に戻ろう。
了解ですわ。とにかく行ける場所は一通り回ってみるとしますか。そこや。そこや。そこや。
Reese. Try aiming. Oh, was that not it? Oh, shit. Oh, I thought they were closer. That sucks. I swear this game was basically like, you know what? You got to use Tita. You're welcome. More Tita for you. I guess we just Mortal Punishment. I do not remember Kevin having this before, but man, this is fucking cool. It is so satisfying. I'll do it again. Did she get another guard? That's awesome. Is it down here that it's open now? Ah, it just had to go down. Ugh. Always the answer. Just go down. Greatest advice ever. The department store and the Imperial Embassy seem to be our targets. Let's do this. These guys are gonna attack. It might hurt a little bit. We'll do Tsita's Vital Cannon. And then we'll just let Kevin go nuts. Ooh, miss hurts, but it's okay. More immortal punishment. How many are in here? 3? I'm not clever enough for all these chess phrases. Dude, I wouldn't be either. 12 to 12. Hideko didn't even wait for an answer. She just flung open the door without a care, and there standing before her was... It said 12 out of 12. Why are you leaving a cliffhanger? Septium drops. There's some green hair inside. The chest prays to Adios. The sinful priest gets his just desserts. Freaking priests these days. 1350 strength. Jesus. And a random ailment. How hard is it to make, though? That is not hard at all. I'm pretty sure you can buy firefly fungus and maple sugar and clear gelatin. It's just Lucky Fangs, and I'm sure there's a monster you can grind it for. Was that all 3? 1, 2, 3. Yes, the other 2 are in the Erebonian Embassy. Ah, you bastard, I wasn't ready for you. Fine, more immortal punishment. Yeah, see? Plenty of Lucky Fangs. Oh, he has vanished. Never mind, it doesn't even matter. Bye-bye. Battle 1. No XP because nothing died. That's awesome. Oh, shit. Oh, thank God it's not a disadvantage encounter. That would blow. Those guys do not give a shit. They're weak to time. Okay. You don't have enough, so... Ooh. Ooh. Let's chill. You all need to calm down. Oh shit. Jesus. Damn, dude. Those were some hits. Not enough. Fine, no more mortal punishment for you. Ooh, that HP heal hurts though. Let's go to Vital Cannon. Luckily, they both have their shields. We can just kind of eat him up. And then Reese's crit should kill him. Nice. All right. No. No. I wondered if Carnelia was on there. There's another one of those things. I want the chest first, though. You are the real treasure. Thanks, man. There it is. Bestia coat. I'm empty, you say. What a liberal statement. Yeah, we'll just do that. But this has to be Mueller. It's in the middle of the embassy, and we most definitely need Julia and Mueller. So I'm sure that's who this one is. Unless they throw a curveball, but I really doubt it'll be Olivier.
大尉が入っていたのもこれと同じような石でした。やはりどなたかが中に封じられているのでしょう。
帝国大使館にあったっていうことは、あ、でもヨシアお兄ちゃんもエレボ
You do make a good point.
誰が出てくるんでしょうか。
ま、そいつはこれを解放してみればわかるやろ。とりあえず頃合いを見て拠点に戻るとしようか。
That's everything in this area, right? Alright. We're actually going to go back to the first plane and into the Jade Corridor. I'm going to check all the chests, because this is going to annoy the hell out of me if I'm just missing one randomly. And I'm fairly certain it wasn't the original 4, because I remember getting them. So it's got to be one of the other ones. So those two are there. That is next to the other door, right? Yes, that's a sun door. We can just bully these guys. So there was 2. How many are around here? Deck, clinic, cafeteria, conference. I remember getting all 5 of those. So that one was the last two. Let me check. Just walk around you. Okay, this is where the sun door is. So that's the two of them. That's the sun door we can't access without what's her face. But that's two. There was some this way. That's 5 of them. I should probably be clicking them just in case. It does say carefully examine. So maybe I just didn't double click something? I hope it's not on the beginning thing. But I swear I'd clicked on all of them. I make a habit out of double clicking these because it's bound to be the time that I don't do it that shit like this happens. I remember that one. I remember that one because I specifically noted that one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. All that's left is the one up here, right? No, there wasn't an. No, that was all. It was the one on the dock. No, wrong way, wrong way. This one. I'm so backwards because it's backwards. I remember touching that one though. So, our sail is fine. Yeah, it might be screwed if it's the Lusitania ones. I don't know, I didn't have this thing up. I totally forgot to put up the achievement list. So if it is a Lusitania one, well, we'll see if we keep the progress. I clicked these 3, right? Yeah, I did. I'm gonna do it one more time just in case. And then we'll go touch the 2 over by the sun thing. Because I may have just ignored touching it. Oh, you bastard. I don't want to fight you. Oh, an airstrike. Good job, big guy. I remember looking at these. So that's all of them around here. Oh, I just immediately went this way again. It's this way. We'll just do this. I love rechecking for things. You're just an enemy. You have nothing. Oh, that's where Tito was. I don't think Tito will kill it. Oh, just barely. That's where Tita was. That's where her moon door is. This is where we came up, right? Yeah. That's where an enemy is. Okay, so now we can go up here. Right? Yeah. Actually. We'll just have Kevin do. Oh, he can't reach it. Boo. Tita can kill them though. Boy needs a range. A chest. A chest. My kingdom for a chest. I don't remember reading that one. I may have though. We'll see if it updates once in a few seconds. Because it seems to be updating rather quickly. Sometimes, I'd say. Gotta fight this one. Oh, here. And then maybe Tita can kill them. Ooh, stone statue says otherwise. I'm here because they ran out of jokes. Rip. Same thing. Oh, wait. If we do attack orders, can he kill them? Nice. Oh, and I remember that one because I explained it. And I think that's the last one. So if it does not update, I might be a bit SOL when it comes to that, because that means I missed one of the ones on the dock, which I may even just go check really quickly to see if I did. Here, 1 second. All right, I don't know then, because I definitely clicked all 4 of them. So either one didn't register, or I found the chest it was and it just hasn't registered yet, or something. Because, yeah. We need to be here anyway. I guess we'll wait and see. Because, yeah, I just pulled it up and I more than definitely clicked all 4 of them and read all 4 of their chest messages. Ta-da! So the game is bugging out. And I mean, I have to play through it on Nightmare, so I'm not too worried. Oh, now it is nighttime in Grand Cell. And I believe that's the west opening. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, it was Mueller.
おそらく狙いは
少佐、あなたでしたか。
タイ、なぜあなたがここに？ここは一体。オリビエのやつはどこに消えたんだ？
なるほど。オリバルト王子も一緒だったみたいですな。
私の方から一通り事情を説明しましょう。不明な点があれば何なりと聞いてみてください。
なるほど。正直あまりに唐突すぎて実感が湧いてこないのだが。
無理もありません。私もいい加減頭が固いので、未だ半信半疑といった気分です。
なんの頭が固いのは自分も同じさ。しかし話を聞いているとほうけている場合でもなさそうだ。あのお調子者の安否も気になるし、自分も探索に協力させてもらおう。
Yes, please.
助かりますわ。ところでオリバルト王子と一緒にいたみたいですけど、少佐が光に包まれたのはどういった状況やったんですか？
ああ、自分たちは視察のためパルム市を訪れていたんだ。夜ホテルの部屋に戻ったところで突然周囲が白くなっていった。あいつもその場にいたから同じく巻き込まれたかもしれん。
パルム市って確かエレボニアで一番
あ
I'm
あ、リベル
sorry.
トの国境に一番近い町になるかな。
先ほどから話に出ているオリバルト王子というのは？
ええ、例によって冬都市に一緒に乗り込んだメンツの一人や。王子とか言ってるけど、めっちゃノリのいい楽しい人やで。
あれを楽しいというのはいささか語弊があると思うがな。面白がって事態をかき回し、周りの人間を疲れさせる手合いだ。
ご謙遜を。帰国されてからの王子のご活躍、リベールでも耳にしていますよ。何でも帝国の社交界の新たな長寿と噂されているとか。
猫かぶりが続いているうちは何とかなっているようだが、本性を暴露されたらどのように噂されることやら。
少佐も大変ですな。なんや、どうした？
何でも。しかしどうやら皆さんはお互いに面識が終わりのご様子。白い光に巻き込まれたのはそのあたりが条件になっている気がします。
なるほど。言われてみればそうやな。
正確に言うと、その封印石とやらに封じ込まれた人物の条件だ。聞けばアルセイユに加えグランセルの死骸も妙なことになっているそうだが、クルーや住民を封じた石はまだ見つかっていないのだろう。
ええ、その通りです。
確かにこれも何かのルールかもしれませんね。
いずれにせよこのまま探索を続けましょう。当面は王都に何があったのか解き明かす必要がありますし。
ああ、
よければ自分も同行させてもらいたい。この異常事態、まずは身をもって把握しておきたいからな。
See, the nice thing about Mueller, he's built like a truck and will slaughter everything. Because right now the buffing is like useful, but I like that there's a random button. From this point, it'll be possible to switch members in and out of the party from the garden. To do this, like the party icon displayed on the screen, members who aren't mandatory at that point in time can be switched freely. It's also possible to view and change the equipment and orbments of reserved members from the camp menu while in the garden as well. That is Very useful.
よろしく頼む。私はここで少し頭を冷やした方が良さそうだ。
ユリアさん。
何かあったら必ずユリアさんに連絡します。その間庭園の守りはよろしく頼みますわ。
承知した。今のは
ケビン、もしかして。
ああ、またみたいやな。
違法者よ。宝石を手にする者よ。
女の人の声。
何者だ。それがさっぱりわからへんのですわ。どうもこちらの声が聞こえてへんみたいで。
どうやら順調に力を集めて、今一度宝石の力を解放しましょう。
I'm also gonna switch it out. I see there's a support one. About remote abilities. In the cube menu, you can select a character not in the active party to set as a support member. This support member will confer certain benefits on the active party. Each character has a different set of benefits they can provide, including raising stats, drop rates, and more.
かの者の力はあまりに強力です。あなた方の絆が光となりますように。
I do need to switch Julia back into the party. I totally forgot about the door for Mueller and Julia, so we'll just leave Tita behind.
今の声からは悪意は感じられなかったな。
ええ、少なくとも黒騎士のような敵ではないと思います。もっとも正体が不明である以上、完全には信用できませんが。
それでも宝石にいろいろと機能が追加されたみたいや。まずはいろいろ試してみるとしよう。
Aha. So that one's the start menu. So we're gonna kick her out and do that, which is okay. We can also do this. What's up?